Hey everyone, this is Rob Van Dyson again. Today is the 2nd of August, 2020. I'm back up here in Hobble Creek, and my family and I just concluded a camping trip, so I'm a little dirty, but in really good spirits for the most part. And I needed it. I've been dealing with a lot of stuff, a lot of stress. You've probably seen or felt some of it from my previous videos. But I've talked before about the need to recharge. And I come up here once a week and just sit and talk, and for the most part, figure out what I want to say it, and then just enjoy the stream and stuff like that. And that's good. I mean, that really helps me a lot of times. Sometimes my thoughts wander, and it helps me to come up with solutions to stuff I'm dealing with. Other times, my thoughts just wander wherever they will. And that's refreshing, that's relaxing, that's invigorating. But sometimes you need more than just an hour. And that's what I got this weekend. My wife enjoys camping to an extent, but nowhere near where I do. And she doesn't get the same... She gets benefits from it, but I don't think she gets it to the same level. I could be wrong. If when she watches this video, she could tell me. So I guess I'll do that as my check to see if when my wife, or if my wife actually watches this video, if she says anything to me. But this has been really nice, just to come up. We did Friday night to Saturday night. We broke camp, and as soon as I'm done with this video, I'm going to go home and unload everything from the truck. But it was just really nice up there. We didn't even set up a tent. Someone borrowed our tent. We didn't realize that, and that we had totally forgotten we lent out our tent to a family member. Until we're like, where's our tent? And then, oh yeah, we lent it out. But you know what? We didn't need it. We're going through a heat wave right now. Friday when I left work, my truck was reading 128 degrees Fahrenheit. Those of you who are interested can do the conversion to Celsius. But yeah, it was clear days, hot days, but it's, on average, probably about 10 degrees cooler up here in the mountains than it is down in the valley where I live and where I work. So it was really nice. Hobble Creek actually runs right by the campsite that we go to, and you could go down and cool your feet. My wife even sat in the stream for a little bit. It was so hot. And it was a good time. So thank you to my wife who set that up, because she knows how much I enjoy camping. That I'm much less of a grizzly bear when, I get extended times like that. I don't have a whole lot to say right now. I've been listening to podcasts, reading books. One of the books that I just finished, or actually I haven't actually finished this book, I'm almost finished with it, was by Gen Mattis, called Callsign Chaos. And essentially it was his memoirs of his time. He spent a few pages about his youth and then his time in the Marine Corps, all the way up until, as far as I got, towards the end of his career in the Marine Corps. And I expect he'll cover a little bit of his time as Secretary of Defense. as he wraps up the book. And something that there are a lot of leadership principles and a lot of life strategy principles hidden in that book. You know, he'll occasionally come out and say, I learned this from this experience. You know, and sometimes it's very specific to the life of a Marine officer. You know, he talked about one time where he was go, 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 and it was during the push to take over Iraq, the initial invasion of Iraq, and he didn't allow himself to get enough rest. And so he drove by a quarry. He took his unit straight by a quarry, and he was so tired it didn't even set off the alarm. That this is an obvious ambush site. This is like textbook perfect ambush site. And turns out it was an ambush site, and he had gone past, and then his rear elements got ambushed. And they were able to break the ambush, defeat the enemy. And then he was talking about how later on, he made sure that he was able to get enough rest that obvious things like that wouldn't be missed, just because he was so tired and so focused on the goal, which I think was the other lesson that he didn't call out. But what lesson was there is that he was like, all right, we're going from point A, we need to get to point B as fast as possible. And he was so focused on getting to point B that, he didn't say, wait a minute, maybe we should take a little bit more time here, scout this place out, make sure that this isn't an ambush. And there are people who would have made the same mistake having had enough rest, that they would have pushed on through, just so focused on getting to their objective that they didn't realize that they were crossing into dangerous territory. And the first parts of the book I really, really enjoyed. At this part of his career, he's dealing a lot more with politics and stuff, and while I'm still learning, it's not quite as exciting or interesting to me, because I am by no means a political expert, but there are certain trends that you just see, and there's no perfect political system out there, but it's like the writing on the wall. This is the way it's going to go down. These things are going to be sacrificed for political expediencies. These things that on the ground level don't make sense are going to be put in place because they make sense for someone's political agenda or at a higher level politics. And it just kind of like, for me, it brings home, okay, you know what, I need to be in control of my own life, which is kind of the theme of this video series, is me trying to learn how to be in control of my own life, take steps to be in my own life. And the part that's hardest for me personally, and I think it's probably hardest for a lot of people, is overcoming the habits that you built. I'm 41 years old. I have 41 years of learned traits, of habits that I've built, of tendencies that I've built that I need to work my way out of. And, there are times where I'm called out on that, rightfully so. And in his work, Stephen R. Covey has a saying that he likes to say, is you can't talk your way out of a situation you acted your way into. And so right now I'm trying to figure out how to act my way out of some situations that I've acted myself into, that I can't just talk my way out of. And you even see that with Han Solo sometimes, where he's acted himself into a corner and he tries to talk his way out of it, and it never works. He always has to pull his blaster. or he has to, go and do something to try and make amends with Leia or some other. It's just a life lesson. And I'm trying to act my way out of these bad habits. I'm trying to act my way out of these tendencies that can be destructive. And what's interesting about a lot of my habits that are destructive is that at some point in my life they were actually very helpful. There are coping mechanisms of dealing with like stress or abuse or fill in the blank, and it helped me cope with it. But it left me in a position where, as for instance, I can be very closed off emotionally. I am not empathetic at all. My empathy lasts about this long. My wife will say, "It's hot." I'm like, "Yeah, it is hot. It's hot." And, by the third time she's saying it, I'm starting to get annoyed. And she's just looking for empathy. And I'm like, "What do you want me to do about it? I can't do anything about it. Stop complaining." And it's just because I have that little bit of empathy that is so quickly exhausted that I need to expand as I deal with people. But going back to my other point of, General Mattis was in the United States Marine Corps, which is a part of the United States military, which is part of the United States government, and is subject to United States civilian oversight. And I believe that's a very, stable way for it to be, not stable, because inherently it's actually very unstable with the way our government is set up. But I do believe that that's probably the way it should be. The downside to that is that you have people who are making decisions on the strategic and even tactical levels, or at least that affect the tactical levels, with things such as rules of engagement, with things like do we continue forward, do we pull back, and those decisions are being made by people who either have no knowledge or no care for things down on the strategic level. And as he's trying to deal with some of the fallout from that. And the limitations that, quote unquote, for the greater good, for a higher strategic or political level, are being made that, are actually doing harm down on the tactical level. And if you're in a larger organization, such as the United States Marine Corps, which is a large organization, even though it is the smallest branch of the U.S. military, is that you're always going to be subject to someone else who either doesn't know or doesn't care, or they might even know and care, but there is something higher in their mind that necessitates a decision that can make your life miserable, or in the case of the military, even end your life. And that will always be the case in most organizations until you get up to the level where you are the one making those decisions. And in reality is that we're all going to face that to a certain degree. We're all part of this world. Me in particular, I'm a citizen of Springville. I'm a citizen of Utah County. I'm a citizen of Utah. I'm a citizen of the United States of America, and I live in a global society. where things that happen in China can affect us here. And, short of running for president of the United States and actually winning by some miracle or fluke, I'm not going to have a lot to say of what happens, on the geopolitical level. I could run for the governor of Utah, but, I'm still going to have to deal with things that are decided, like up in Washington, or things that are decided or that happen on the geopolitical level. And you can go down to the county seats, you can go down to the city, you can go down as far as you want. And honestly, I have no interest, absolutely zero interest in running for any kind of political office. So what are my choices? Well, I could either just kind of like go along and to get along, and the city passed this new regulation, and I guess I have to follow it, or this, that, or the other. At whatever level the decision is made, or I could do my best to insulate. Same with corporate. Right now I'm a peon in where I work, and I really have no interest in trying to move up into management. But that means I'm subject to everything, to other people's decisions in that company. The time I was furloughed is an example of that. That was a decision that wasn't made, as far as I know, through any fault of my own, for me to be furloughed. Due to the COVID thing, and the fact that so many states were closed, that we're having a hard time moving our trailers. Now, I could work up to try and be a lead, and then try and be a manager, and work my way up, and maybe even work my way up into corporate headquarters. I really have no interest in that. Other people do, not me. And just to be clear, I am not disparaging people who have a desire for politics or for, rising up the corporate ladder, or whatever the case may be. The goal I am going for is actually to be more insulative, where when those types of decisions are being made, they don't affect me as much. And here's a lesson, about insulation, is when I was welding, I'd wear a glove on primarily this hand. This hand held the gun, in my case the MIG gun. This hand was my guide hand, and so it was one that was really close to the work that I was doing, and therefore be subject to the most heat. If I didn't wear a glove, this hand would be, my guide hand, trying not to cover my face here, would constantly be facing serious burns. So you put on a glove. Now, any kind of leather glove would be better than no glove in most cases. But we have welding gloves, and they come in various qualities, and I actually went out and spent a decent amount of money to get a good pair of welding gloves. They were well insulated, so that as I am running my bead, this hand isn't getting burnt. But it still gets very hot, especially because I have a tendency to, get this hand right in there to, more accurately guide. And so I got this pad that you actually wear over your glove, that has, I believe it's aluminized mesh on the front, and then a couple layers of insulation behind that to help keep me from burning my hands, because my hand was still getting uncomfortably hot. And if you're trying to run a long bead and you're trying to keep your pace, your angle, and everything else just right, all of a sudden you can't think of anything else than ow, 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 this is hot, this is burning, this is hot, this is burning. Pretty soon, halfway through a long bead, your weld is just totally gone to gone into the chamber pot. So I took methods to insulate my hand from the heat. However, I still would feel the heat through my glove and through the pad. It just was not nearly as much, not as painful, not damaging. And that's what life is. There are certain things. This COVID lockdown, think of it what you may. One thing that everyone can agree on is that it has had an effect on the economy. People can debate whether it was worth it or not, but the thing is that there was an effect on the economy. Now, some people, myself included, who are very dependent upon a job and who were very negatively affected by this lockdown. Where fortunately, due to certain things, I was like wearing a thick work glove. Not a welding glove, but a thick work glove. And so I was able to get through without, blistering burns. But it's like, okay, there are other people I know of who had the setup I was talking about, where they had the good, thick, insulated glove with the shield on it, who, while they still felt some of the heat, weren't nearly as affected as much as I was. And that's where I want to get. Where things are going to happen, and yeah, they'll affect me, but they don't affect me as drastically as they might affect someone who's trying to weld barehanded. So, anyways, as far as progress reports, I'm still kind of working on certain things. I'm moving forward with Ironfound. Still trying to get through certain walls that I talked about in my last video. But I think I'm starting to make some progress. We'll see. Well, I'm going to go ahead and cut it here because it's still either in the high 90s or low hundreds. And while I'm in the shade, I'd rather just be enjoying the creek right now. So, once again, reminding you, figure out what your dreams are and follow the dreams. Figure out how to get through any walls that come into your place or into your way. And just keep on moving forward. Alright, Fin Dyson out.